All right, thank you everyone for attending this session. This is thank you for having us, InsurTech Insights. Very excited to see you guys continue to come back to New York. I believe this is like your fourth conference, right? So it's definitely good to be here. I'm really excited for this panel. It's customer experience panel in distribution. If you think about all the big InsurTechs that went public over the years, many of them started because they recognized that customer experience in distribution was broken, and they came out with really great ways to improve that process. And that was many years ago, and there's been a lot of improvement in the industry. So we'll learn from the panelists here to find out how things have changed, what are ways to gather information on how to understand what customers' needs are in the distribution space, and some technology use cases as well. So before we get started with the panel, can we just go around the room and just introduce yourself and what you do in your company? You want to start?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Greg Leven, Senior Vice President of the International Business Vertical at Flywire. Flywire is a publicly traded international payments company. Been at Flywire 2.5 years, and the company's been around for 15. Is that all you want, Tony, or do you want more background? Where I'm from and what my favorite color is, or?
Yeah, where are you going for summer? Yeah.
Where are we going in August? We're going on a cruise, I think. So yeah.
Perfect.
Grand Cayman.
Thank you.
Rob Whitton, I'm with Majesco, one of the vice presidents of sales. I came over from the Decision Research Corporation acquisition, where I was there for 20 years in Honolulu. So you'll probably visit me in August when you come on that vacation.
That's where we're going, Tony.
Favorite color is
Perfect.
blue, and just happy to be here.
Thank you.
I'm Cam Torstenson. I'm the EVP, Chief Marketing Officer for EMC Life, or the life affiliate of EMC Insurance Companies. We are the odd folks out, generally speaking, in the room because we've been in business since 1911. So we've gone extinct in your world 6 or 7 times over.
My name is Drew Monroe. I was the founder of Prosper Insurance that recently got purchased by Evertree Insurance. Evertree Insurance is about 1.5 years old. They got a $125 million investment to try to reshape the personal lines insurance space. Today, we're the 25th largest personal lines distributor in the country. And they purchased Prosper to be kind of the technical foundation for the company.
Awesome, thank you. My name is Tony Liu. I'm a founder of InsurTech New York, which connects those in the InsurTech ecosystem through our startup programs, education networking events, and we also invest in early stage startups as well. So as you can see, we have a very diverse group. We have a payments company, core systems vendor, and a life carrier executive, and a broker, PNC broker executive as well. So really excited to be here. So let's get started with the first questions, which is on how do we even understand what the customer's needs are in the customer experience space and distribution? So I'll start with you, Drew, since you have a lot of connections with the customers directly as a broker. How do you get their needs? What systems do you actually have in place to gather their needs so you can actually improve it?
It's certainly elusive, but one thing that we really use a lot is NPS score. I know it's relatively a basic thing, but we ask whether we did a good job. We measure it. We respond to it. We try to ingrain it into the culture of our company. Every meeting that we have starts with what was our NPS last month. Any bad score gets a light shined on it, and then we ask, could we have changed the process? So that would be the more reactive way. The other thing we try to do is create fast feedback loops. If we put something out there, we want to measure it quickly and respond to it quickly, and so we want to see if we have a new web page. We're going to look at where the mouse goes and where they're clicking and where they're leaving, and all pretty basic stuff. I think it's more about being agile and fast to make changes when you roll something out.
Got it. So that's how you can capture customer needs is through some surveys, and also, do you actually interview them and talk to them directly to get feedbacks as well, or not something you do?
We always give them the option to. But every person who ever leaves something unhappy, we call and ask them what we could have done better. We've also had focus groups and things like that. But for us, it's just more constant tweaking to what we do.
Yes, it's like an ingrained process in your sales process. So, funny thing in the insurance industry is, like, from a carrier's perspective, oftentimes they don't have direct relationship with the end customers until they get to the claims process. And so when you often ask them who their customers are, their customers are agents and brokers. And so, Cam, from your perspective, how do you gather brokers and agents' needs? And how do you actually, resolve the conflict you may have when customer needs are a bit different from brokers' needs?
So you hit upon something that's been an ongoing debate in our company for years, which is, who is the customer? Is it the policyholder, or is it the distribution partner? And ultimately, from our perspective, generally speaking, we think that the agent is the customer, and we are serving their customer when we provide policy support, we provide life insurance for their customer. It's important to understand that from our perspective, because we are 100% behind the independent agent channel. We're still of the position philosophically that life insurance is going to continue to need to be sold, and that philosophically, from the standpoint of essentially defending the consumer, not to paint us in a picture of the Superman cape, but the independent agent is the thing that stands between the consumer and a market that is controlled by sort of hegemonic few folks, because now it's commodity driven. So if I don't have the agent in a position to help the consumer understand the difference between product A and product B, and product B is cheaper, product B will always get sold. So that's a really critical thing. In terms of how we think about that, to that point, we spend a lot of time in conversation. The other challenge for us is that we've got two things going on. We've got independent agents out there, and a lot of them are out there in the field, in the trenches, trying to close deals, trying to win new customers. And so the truth of the matter is, on Maslow's hierarchy, they're not thinking about philosophical things of the future. They're thinking about food and water and that kind of thing. And so when we talk to them, we have to try and understand their business in a way that's sort of different than we do a consumer, because we may be in a position to understand where their needs should go. A lot of times what we'll discover is that the agent will tell us what they think, which is not the same as telling us what they think they need. Because they're not thinking in terms of the future. They're not thinking in terms of where things are going. They don't have the energy to do that, and that's part of the role we try and play in that situation. A lot of agent interviews. We just finished about 50 of them a month ago.
Okay, so you have like a process in place to continue to interview and talk to agents to gather information. You kind of mentioned something interesting here, which is some of them don't know what they want. And so you kind of have to make a guess. Is that kind of what you're alluding to? Like, how do you actually capture the information?
Well, I think they know what they think they want. The problem is that they're not always in a position to understand what's going to be possible in a year, what's going to be possible in 2 years. And we had this conversation backstage, right? A Henry Ford quote, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they'd have told me a faster horse. And so what we're in the business of trying to do is understand the technology on the horizon and how it's going to impact the business, so that we can begin to shape the things that we're building in response to where we think they're going to be in terms of needs in 18 months, in 2 years, not where they think they are today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, that makes sense. All right, so now that we have some ways to understand how to gather customers' needs and agents' needs as well, let's break down what are all the different elements that are involved in the complete user experience of distribution. So I'll go to you, Drew. What's kind of involved in that?
First of all, we're a brokerage, so we live to drive profitable business to our carriers, and we can only exist sustainably if we do that. So when we think about the consumer experience, I would change that to our preferred consumer experience. And we want to cater to the profiles of people that we believe are going to drive profitable business for our carriers. So right now, there's a lot of big questions around what those types of clients want. And I think if we zoom out and ask ourselves what the main theme of this entire conference is with the with AI and Gen AI coming into existence, what are human beings going to do? What's AI going to do? And what's going to enable human beings? And if we're talking about user experience on the front end, then you're talking about virtual agents. And I was on the watched a main stage person talk about that. And my opinion right now is that while the technology is really exciting, and we will definitely be investing in AI behind the curtain, I think there's some major headwinds when it comes to a virtual agent chat type experience for 3 reasons. One would be trust. I think consumer trust will be lagging behind the ability of the technology. Profit. Every single piece of data that I have seen suggests that the early adopters of an end-to-end digital purchasing of insurance has tended to not be as profitable as the ones that haven't chose to go that route. So that's a big challenge. And then third is brand. I mean, obviously we're here and thinking about InsurTechs, but if you look at the general market share of the independent agency channel, most of that business has been written with companies that have branded themselves as being consultative to their clients. And we know it's a recipe that works to drive our profitable business to our carriers. And so for them, one, how do you convince a user who's on your website, if they start talking to a virtual agent, are they going to ask themselves, well, am I not valuable enough to be with a human being? And how do you take brands both culturally, internally, from we are this giving consultative advice, our differentiator, our people, and introducing this front end thing to replace that, that's a tough task. And so from my perspective, I can see it on very simple transactions, maybe at off hours if agencies aren't open 24 hours. But I think there's a lot of headwind when it comes to generative AI as part of the digital user experience for what I would say is desirable clients for our carriers.
Okay, so you mentioned basically like in the whole user experience workflow, there's a touch point with the customer, and it seems like you mentioned some Gen AI application for that, which I think to your point, it doesn't seem to be prime time. Is kind of what you're saying. Anybody here wants to disagree with that or have another perspective?
Yeah, I think I'm not going to disagree with it. I think that we at Majesco see AI as a evolving, as everybody does, right? Everything's evolving, and we're trying to find out what the actual steps that can be taken by an insurance carrier or by an MGA or by a brokerage firm to actually get some benefit rather than waiting for the virtual agent to become good enough to take a first call or to pre-fill a submission so that a real agent can then do consultative type of relationship. So we're looking at, where does the rubber meet the road today? And so one thing as a concrete example of that is we have worked where the user, so you asked about the end user experience. As a system provider, we have a lot of different users. So we can have some direct to consumer products. We can have the agents, obviously, are often the users. The actual operations staff or back office staff of a carrier are also our users. And so we have lots of different constituencies that we have to take a look at. So if you look at the back office where people say, yes, there's going to be cost savings, AI is going to come along, and a lot of people get excited, oh, they're going to steal our jobs. But the management says, don't worry, we're just going to do more stuff with the same amount of staff. Nobody's going to get a pink slip. But so we'll see it. The reality is probably going to be somewhere in the middle there. But what we've done is allow users to enter what they're trying to do through a chat GPT-like interface and say, I want to pull up Tony's homeowner's policy. He's going to sell the house the July 15th. So I want to do a cancellation effective July 15th. And the AI will turn that into a series of workflow steps invisible to the user. And instead of the user going and finding Tony, then pulling up the homeowner's policy, then going to the cancel screen, then clicking the reason and the date, it'll just be popped up in front of them. And now the user just has to confirm, yes, that's correct. And so we see that as a concrete example, and we've done this with some of our clients, where we can see a 5-minute transaction take 30 seconds. Sometimes in complicated specialty underwriting, you might have many steps that have to take place. If there's a large schedule of vehicles or large schedule of properties on a commercial product, that can reduce that from like 20 minutes down to a minute or 2. So in that case, the user experience for that end user is more pleasant.
Yeah.
I don't have to do the mundane task of click, recall, wait, click, recall, wait. You know, I can explain what I'm trying to do. The machine will present what they think you said, and you can confirm or correct it.
Yeah, no, so that's basically a great use case of AI. Is they're not really touching the actual interaction with the customers, but they're doing more of the back-end process and making it more efficient. So speaking of other processes in the customer journey, policyholder customer journey, there's also payment is involved as well, and that's can be a huge pay point. And so, Greg, you want to kind of share a bit more about what kind of challenges do customers have in that space, and what can be done technologically to solve that problem?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think at the core of our business, we sell trust, right? Trust Flywire to move your money or your revenue. And so if we've been customer centric since we've started. In fact, we started in the education space supporting international student payments. If you've had a son or daughter attending a university, we've got 3,200 university clients, and maybe you've paid with Flywire. Maybe not a show of hands, but think about that. So a student is making likely the largest financial payment or financial decision of their life. And so if you don't have trust, if you don't have a great user experience, if you're not customer focused, what they do is they just don't pay. And that doesn't benefit the university or Flywire or the student. So our entire business is founded on the principle of trust. Cameron, you said you have trouble kind of figuring out who the customer is. We view, from a customer-centric experience, we view both sides. We view the payer, which could be a policy payer in this arena. We have many lines of businesses at Flywire, but and we view it the insurer, the carrier, or the biller ultimately. So we view both sides, and so we go to endless lengths to speak and market the local language. We're huge in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Africa. And so it's not, the whole AI bot communication is definitely a play for us. But at the end of the day, if you're making a $30,000 payment from India to the US and you have a problem, you want a partner like Flywire and a human to call you and tell you what's going on, rather than entering a ticket in a system and it says, we'll respond to you in 3 to 5 business days. That's not a great payments experience. So, the parallel here is that our entire customer experience is built on the back of trust us. And I think, Drew, you mentioned, you work very, very hard on looking at the mouse clicks and seeing the user experience. And from a Flywire perspective, I think we knew we were cool before we knew we were cool, meaning like we've always been embedded payments. It's just never been a term. And so you work so hard on the UI, we just want the payment to not cause a customer to have a bad experience in your policy tool, in your admin tool with an agent business. So that's kind of, did I answer that, Tony?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's such a critical component, and if, as a consumer, you're going through the process, and I'm trying to give you money, and if it doesn't accept it or it takes a long time, you immediately lose trust. Like, well, I'm trying to give you money. Why aren't you taking my money, right? So,
I think to go on the analogies, you used one. I'll use one. But payments to Flywire should be like Uber. The best part about an Uber is the way you pay, and you don't. It just happens on the back of a great process. So that's what we're doing in embedded payments. And again, if anything in that journey, I think when you're taking an Uber in New York, right? We've all done that plenty of times. But if the GPS shows a different address that you've entered, you're not going to have a good experience. You probably want to get out of the car. So just like in our world, we need every detail of the payment to be perfect, embedded into an experience to earn the maximum amount of trust.
Great. So we touched on a few components. There's the actual conversation with the customer. There's like automating the underwriting process. There's also the payment process. A lot of these are actually helping us be more efficient in the sales process. But oftentimes there's like a conflict between, hey, do you want to be efficient, and is that actually solving our customer needs? So Cam, you wanted to kind of share some thoughts on this. Like, do you have any thoughts on customer needs versus efficiency?
I do, and they're a little bit more general than that. I think industry-wide, what I would say, a couple things to remember. Number one, there was recent Pew Research that to the effect of this. It's going to shock everybody in the room. Generally speaking, people don't trust that generative AI is going to make their life better. Is that the most shocking piece of information you got since you got here? Secondarily, you remember that for a long time in this industry, we've been dealing with a situation where people rate their insurance agents in general terms only slightly above members of Congress. Recently, I heard as well in a Boston Consulting Group report that the insurance industry is the second fastest adopter of generative AI of any industry, which has got to be the first time that's been true of anything related to technology for insurance. But stop and think about what's going on now. We're going to take insurance agents, who people don't trust, and we're going to replace them with generative AI, who people don't trust, and we're going to try and make them trust us.
Double whammy there, yeah.
And so I think from that perspective, what we're really thinking about from the standpoint of customer experience is that it's a supporting, it's a background, right? It's something that the human being still needs to be part of that process. But the thing I think, a couple things just in terms of the room, things to think about. I like to try and be a little bit provocative. F. Scott Fitzgerald said that the mark of a great mind is the ability to hold two opposing views at the same time. I think it's right for the industry to look at generative AI as an opportunity to create really significant and important improvements in efficiency. Really significant and important improvements in efficiency. However, if you, in your current job role, find yourself focusing on becoming more efficient, that should be an enormous red flag for you, right? Because in the bigger picture, a human being is not ever going to out-efficient generative AI. And so the challenge, that opposing view, is that while we get more efficient by using generative AI, we also have to be imagining where does the human being continue to add value in that process. And I think that's part of the challenge of what do we do with that from a UX standpoint. I don't know if everybody's had the opportunity, but about a month ago on YouTube came out a demonstration video of the multimodal, one of the new multimodal AIs from Google. And if you haven't had a chance to look at it, you should go look at it. I showed it to both my leadership team and my marketing team without comment at the front end. I just let them watch it. And when you watch it, it's remarkable. Depending on your bent in the world, it's either terrifying or it's amazing or it's whatever you want. But after the video is over, and this is what I'm going to leave everybody in the room with to think about in your job, the question I asked was this: what is the UX experience expectation of your customer going to be in a world where this is their reality all the time? Because I got news for you. The insurance industry is not providing it now, and we're going to have to figure out how to get there. And that's going to be the real challenge, is how do we, and it's going to be a partnership. It's going to be all of these folks that are thinking this way. We've got to figure out how to work more cooperatively and collaboratively with regulators. We've got to get a little further out in front here. But that would be my thought for the group, is start thinking a little bit more about where this goes, not in the next 12 months or the next 18 months, but in the next 24, 36, 48. We're going to have to make some really big changes, or we're going to have very unhappy customers, because that's not going to be their expectation anymore.
No, that's right. Consumer behavior is constantly changing. And I mean, you mentioned that insurance is one of the least trusted professional. I think there's a top 10 list. I think we're definitely on the top 5 probably, or the most distrusted. And then add Gen AI to that. I mean, that's pretty scary.
Foreign
but also
exchange.
Could be that maybe we're already kind of at a bad place. Like maybe it doesn't really make much difference. That's another way to look at it. You had a comment?
Foreign exchange broker is definitely on that list
Yeah,
somewhere. So.
that's also top 5. Yeah, you want to make a comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, what I think about adding efficiency to the process, I think you push as hard as efficiency you can until you get to the point where you can no longer deliver a wow experience. And so if you are sacrificing at any moment the ability to drive lifetime value and loyalty from your client, because that is actually what drives profit for carriers and profit for brokerages, is your client loyalty. It's a long-term game, and you will not win with short-term efficiency grabs, in my opinion. And so I think it's going to be huge for efficiency. But again, more behind the curtain, more enabling our really well-trained, consultative humans, because let's not forget that insurance, at some level, at least for the best clients, is an emotional buy. The clients we want are the ones that are calling to protect their assets, not to save $100. And so, that's driven by fear and things like empathy, and are inspiring for people to make a decision to buy insurance. And even if a generative AI is better at or more quick at delivering a rate to a client, I think we're a long ways away before a customer feels better because a robot said it's going to be okay. And so for us, our strategy is completely around enabling our folks to be more efficient so that they can spend more time advising and consulting the client and less time clicking and things like that.
Yeah.
And I agree with that 110%. My tale of caution is this. Same Boston Consulting Group study we heard about a month or so, 2 months ago. There is something called a Fleisch Index, and if you go and write a Word document and you get a Fleisch score, what it is essentially is approximation about what grade level is your writing. Is this aimed at a 12th grader or a college student, a 3rd grader? I can't remember, I apologize, I can't remember what the score is called, but there is also a score that measures the empathy in written communication. Now what we all hope, and what I'm counting on based on what you said, is that human beings are going to be, are now, and will continue to be more empathetic than AI. But they're not. Generative AI scores higher empathy scores in written communication than human beings. I talked a little bit before about red flags. That's a red flag, folks. We got to be thinking about that, and you're right on the money.
Yeah. No, so
Tony,
go ahead.
Add something. I'd like to piggyback on what Drew was saying in terms of efficiencies for efficiency's sake, or setting up, the people who are actually going to end up talking to the end insured or to the broker. So one thing we've been focusing on is really helping triage or set up so that the person who's going to be the best suited to be the advisor or the underwriter or the superior adjuster, the senior adjuster on a claim, has all of the information up front. It's been vetted, it's been cleaned, it's been enriched, and it's ready for that person to be as efficient as possible when they do the best that they do, which is dealing with the client. So either the claimant, the prospective customer, or with the agent if they're negotiating with the agents. And so we've really been focusing on that, so making it easier to submit business so that it goes quickly through the underwriting assistant process, gets cleaned, gets vetted, and now it's triaged by the time it gets to the underwriter, and they can focus on doing the thing that they do best, and that the thing that you're paying them the most for, which is to be underwriters. And so I think one of the challenges that I see for the industry in doing that is if we automate a lot of those steps, how does a junior underwriter ever become senior? Or how does a junior claims adjuster go through the 10,000 hours of practice to become an expert? Weed through the crappy claims that are junk in terms to start to think about how they level up and become a middle manager and then a senior adjuster. So I think there is a little bit of risk there. If we automate a lot of things to make it easy, eventually those senior underwriters are going to retire. And if we haven't developed a way to bring up the juniors because we've automated them out of jobs, it's a question of who's going to actually do that work.
Yeah, that's definitely good. I mean, it happens in industries all over, right? In some industries disappear because it's all been automated. And so I guess to your point, Cam, not just thinking about like how to engage with the customers, but like thinking about our own employee staff, how their lives will change in the coming years is some definitely things that we need to think about. So seems like on a summary level, it's not a efficiency versus like customer need. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Actually, being more efficient helps with the customer experience, but have to be very careful when you try to be more efficient in the communication side. So just overall, Rob, I ask you, like, what are some technologies that are out there that are helping you be better at across the customer experience journey?
Yeah, so for many of our clients who are commercial carriers or commercial MGAs, their lifeblood is going to be the agents, and agents have the power. They've got the relationship with the client, and so we've heard this in our industry for years. The ease of doing business is crucial. You have to be the easiest carrier to do business with. It has to be easy to sell, easy to close, easy to deal with. And so for an agent, easy is not having each carrier has their own portal. I have to remember my own username and password and what the behaviors I have to do on each site. So easy is just like emailing off an application in an Excel spreadsheet and some loss runs. And so we are helping carriers be that easy catcher's mitt to that. So by a combination of OCR and machine learning, we can take those documents that are structured and easily turn them into a submission. For the stuff that's unstructured, we're working on parsing those statements of value so they can get turned into claims if they're loss runs. We can turn them into property records if they're a list of properties. And again, the whole idea is that the submission happens quickly, efficiently. Most carriers are still rekeying data at least 2 to 3 times to get data into a pricing tool, the underwriting tool, checking clearance. So cutting out those steps gets it more quickly to the underwriter, and then use of AI, not yet, but probably very soon, will help allow scoring. So now your to-do list has been vetted. So if I can only handle 50 submissions a day, the top 15 I'm looking at are the actually top 15 best ones we're looking at. So I think that's where you can daisy chain these technologies together. So OCR is a mature technology, been around. Machine learning has been around for a while, but getting better and better. And then, then you can start using AI to ask questions of those submissions, to triage them. So I think it's combinations putting them together. And I think for most carriers who are saying we're into Gen AI, I think it's important just to do something that's a real tangible product, something that's going to reduce 5 steps to 1, or something that's going to reduce 4 rekeys now becomes 3 rekeys. And you're getting experience on what worked, what didn't work, rather than trying to wait for some super efficient thing that's just going to automatically make the whole thing grow right to the top into the senior underwriter. So I think that's the key that I see. The other area we're looking at in AI is most everybody is keeping track of an audit trail of who's doing what to which policy for servicing, or how long is a purchase journey taking. So as you said, you're looking at the screens. When did they bail out? It was at the 3rd screen and the 5th question, and they all bailed out. But what are they actually doing with that data? Many places, there are different types of tools that are recording all that data. So you got to get into a data lake or something. But then most data lakes aren't structured to simply query them. Well, that's where AI is coming along, where you can point AI at a unstructured, centralized data repository, call it a data warehouse, a data lake, data enterprise, and then start asking it real questions. And you can say things like, when do my homeowner shoppers in direct-to-consumer products bail on their journey? And then the AI can look at the data and understand how to map data together to give you actual real meaningful dashboards and present those to your users. So I think it's coming. I think the main thing is to try to pick some real tangible tasks that will give you a lift. Everybody likes to use the term MVP, get a couple of quick wins so people get confidence that this isn't just smoke and mirrors and a promise from the IT department, but there's actually some real wins that they can see and get some early return on investment.
Great. Share a lot of great examples there. So let's kind of jump into real examples of technology implementation in this user journey. And so, Greg, you want to share a successful implementation or a failure implementation of your product in an insurance company? Yeah.
Well, we don't have any failed implementations, so I can't really comment on that. But no, I think from a payments perspective, our very MO of our entire company is to integrate with what other core operating systems a company uses, whether it be a system of record in the insurance space or an ERP system in broader business. And so, I think back to Cameron, I think I definitely want to stay close to you. You're hard to follow because you have so many insightful things. But you said something earlier that when people ask for things, you qualify the ask. I think in the international payment space, my goodness, we get a lot of that. We get a lot of, hey, Greg, we need X, and it's like, help me understand a little bit. And if you've demonstrated that you're a great partner to that company, they'll listen to you and they'll take your advice. If you're a vendor, maybe they just tell you what to do and they just want you to do it and get out. So the point is, I think a failed story is when people come in with a preconceived notion on what the integration should look like without consulting a partner on, hey, here are the best ways to do this. A lot of times you're fighting the old, here's another analogy. My team's out there somewhere. I use analogies all the time. But when all you have is a hammer, everything becomes a nail. So I'd say more often than not, that's when the failure occurs. It's not necessarily the company's fault or Flywire's fault or the system integrator's fault. It's just you're fighting that minutia of resistance to change and undoing the multi-million-dollar project they did that they maybe didn't do. Those are hard conversations to have.
All right. Well, so
but we've never had that before.
Never had.
So I'm just speculating on what that could be. Theoretically.
Well, anyone here want to share some examples where it was challenging? Let's say go ahead.
Yeah, I think one thing that business teams, and so we also count among our customers actuarial groups or pricing teams. And so often the actuarial teams have a deep mistrust of IT vendors and the IT department because they've been burned. So they work for years to come up with a model or a tool. Often they're not given very good tools by the IT department, so they come up with their own. Many of the young actuaries are graduating with excellent programming skills in Python and R and other tools. And so when they see that they don't have any tools, they start building their own. And that's great because they're solving their business need, but it also keeps the CIOs up at night because they're anxious. What did you build? You're calling this mission critical. Is it exposing me to risk? Is it SOC 2 compliant? Am I unsecure? What have you done? And so we've had some clients who have those homegrown tools that are incredibly valuable to the actuarial department, and they have been told for years that it will be replaced by this wonderful system X or this wonderful homegrown solution Y, and it's always failed. And so when a vendor comes in the house, they're like, no way. My stuff is too complicated. There's no way you guys can understand it. And so the work it takes to convince them that you're not going to take their baby and throw the whole thing out with the bathwater is hard. But we've had a couple of success stories where pretty complicated products, so global financial products that aren't obvious. They're not one of the standard personal lines, or they're not a standard commercial line. So many vendors don't understand what's actually going on behind the scenes. So we have an enterprise rating tool that we think is pretty flexible. So that has been one of my more rewarding projects where the suspicion level was super high from the actuaries that we were going to be yet another failed project. You give them some tools. They're able to use the tools themselves. They don't have to go back to us. They don't have to go back to the IT team. And then they can then maintain it going forward in a way that they're comfortable. So I think that's an example where you had to basically embrace what they've already built and the way they think, and then bring your tools to them rather than saying, hey, everybody start using my tool, because I've come up with a better mousetrap.
That makes sense. It seems like this is more a case of, communication and really is trying to let them understand we're not taking your job away. We're not replacing what you're already doing. We're just making it better, right? So from a vendor perspective.
Do you think they're going to believe that?
Well, that's why they get the big
You
bucks,
have to
right?
show
So
them. They won't believe you. It's a show me state. It's Missouri. You have to show them. And so until you actually take what they've built and spin it back to them, then they're like, okay, I only distrust you 50% now.
Yeah. Well, Cam, you have some thoughts on that, where you tried this out and they didn't buy you? Yeah.
So I'm in marketing, so I'm a storyteller at heart. And that gives me a slightly different perspective on some of these things. And I'm not the kind of person that likes to come up and say, hey, the sky's falling a little bit, and if you're in an efficiency business, you might be in trouble. But let's call a spade a spade. One of the things that generative AI is going to do is it's going to create an efficiency free-for-all that eventually is going to come up against a brick wall. You can only be so efficient. Right? And if you think in your ivory towers of where you're making decisions that your long-term competitive advantage is efficiency, rethink it. Rethink it. So when you talk about being a storyteller, again, the thing I think about is does the team member believe that you're going to keep their job? Do they believe they're not going to go away? And the kernel I would give everybody maybe just to hang on. At least it's the one I hang on to because I'm in a unique position in my company to be able to take time to think this way. There's a great Maya Angelou quote I would challenge you all to keep in the back of your mind, and you know what it is. People will forget what you did. They will forget what you said. They will never forget how you made them feel. And that is going to be the role the human is going to need to figure out how to play in the system, which is really what you're talking about, which is what we're... And I just think it's a great, from my perspective, it's a great touch point to be mindful of the difference between where we're going in the next 18 months and where we're going to end up in 4 or 5 years.
All right, so I think summed it up, Cam, which is there's definitely a lot of new technology, especially Gen AI. It seems like it's going to change our everyone's behavior, like customers, policyholders' behavior, agents' behavior, and especially like the people working in the insurance companies. It's just we have to be mindful of the changes that are going to be coming. But don't forget that our end customers, we got to serve them. And so there's going to be, I think it's an opportunity for all of us. We're not going to use technology that's not going to help our customers at the end of the day. And so it'll be interesting. We will have this conversation again next year, and I'm sure we'll have additional things to talk about. So thank you for the panel. Appreciate you all.